All right, so I want to talk about what I think is one of the major issues. I think the biggest leadership problem in the American workplace. This comes from unique perspective. I've coached 10,000 people.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear.
Who were leaving leaders in my previous show. And I was on a leadership podcast recently. They asked me, what do you think is one of the bigger issues? And I said, well, I'll tell you what I think has to be in the top 3. And it comes from this clip. And this is me sharing some data and then an opinion. And this is about micromanagement. We'll get to it, but I want you to watch what I said. And this had, let me look at this, make sure I get this right. 11.7 million views, thousands of comments on Instagram. I stepped into it. Here's what I said, and I want to know what you think. Micromanagement is a deadly leadership trait. This is a leader who's terrified, petrified, and because of their fear, they are trying to answer their fear with control. They don't trust the employees they lead because they are so afraid, and they just cannot let go. They are holding on for dear life. This is white-knuckle management, and this turns into spying on people, creating crazy policies. You see some of these traits on a consistent basis. This ought to be a big-time red flag for you.
Wow. By the way, you look awesome there. You're very tan, very handsome. I was like, who is this guy? Wow.
Well, I think that must have been filmed when I had been playing a lot of pickleball outside, summertime. That took off, and we were sitting there as a team going, whoa. And the comments about that were 98%. You're absolutely right. And they begin to tell stories of leaders who just constrict their freedom.
So but what the beauty of what you did right there is you didn't just talk about micromanagement, you talked about why people do it. It's fear and the need for control. They're insecure. Because micromanagement is one of those people that say, oh, you're micromanaging me, but why do people do that? Because they're afraid. And I like that you hit that on there. There's a reason people do that is because they're like, oh no, it's like leading out of fear versus love. And if you ask them like, well, what's wrong with that person? Give them some rope. Let them try things. Let them fail. They're like, oh no, but it might make me look bad. It gets back to the motive and all those things. So I totally agree with you that is one of those things. But what's underneath that is what I find fascinating. And what's underneath that is something that I've recently been looking at, and that's wounds. And like in the last year, I've been giving talks and people say, what's the next book you're working on? And I never write a book just to write a book, but there's something that I've been really interested in, and that's the wounds of leaders. And I've been looking at myself. And why do we micromanage people? Because we're afraid. Why are we afraid? Because we fear failure. We thought, if I fail, I don't know how to recover from this. I'm never enough. I was rejected or ashamed. And so you hit that is the iceberg coming up above. It's like micromanagement is a problem. Now let's go teach a manager, do you know why you're micromanaging these people? And do you know it's not working? And some of them go, I know it's not working. They're leaving, but I can't stop. And they can't stop because they need to look a little deeper at why they do the things.
Oh, you nailed it. You nailed it. They can't stop because they don't know how to solve it, because they don't even actually know what the real problem is. You know, I try to remind people that bad leaders aren't bad people all the time. In fact, I would say most of the time.
Oh, no, it's very rare that it's somebody that's just like.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
But I think the workforce goes nuts. They respond to this and it goes viral.
Yes.
And they're like, and you can feel the anger. If I scrolled through that reel and showed you the comments, it would really break your heart. Because there's real anger from workers who've been hurt by these, but they think that this leader is a bad person, and I think you nailed it. They're broken.
Yeah. And you know what's bad is because then when they do is they go, that leader's a bad person. They go, oh, I've done it too. I'm a bad, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's why grace is so important.
Yeah.
We need to go. But grace, love requires grace and truth.
Right.
So like if you're my leader and I love you and you are hurting me and I go, oh, I'm going to let them off the hook. I'm not going to tell them. That's not love.
Right.
Because it leaves you there. Or if I go to you and I go, you're a jerk, and I have no grace for you, that's not love, that's cruelty. You need both, grace and truth.
Yeah. You are right, and I agree with you. There is pain from their past that is creating the fear.
Oftentimes they got to that place by doing that. See, we have these maladaptive coping mechanisms. And when you're in high school and college and your first job, being a micromanager is probably pretty good because you don't leave anything to chance.
Right.
And then you go, hey, this works for me. I'm not happy doing it. I'm afraid. I mean, that's what's happened to me in my life. When I look now like, why have I been so successful? And there's a lot of different, God's given me gifts and opportunities, but I've also grew up with a never enough. And most of the high achievers.
You were not enough?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude.
And one failure sends me to oblivion.
Well, it takes me back to this narrative.
Do you know how many athletes, CEOs, politicians, high achievers, people in this room, especially you? No, I just But do you know how many people's success is built upon what we would call a maladaptive coping mechanism?
I would say it's massive.
Exactly. And what we need to realize is we need to step back and go, I can undo that, therapy, personal coaching, all those things, without threatening my ability to contribute. But so many people, I mean, think about these athletes that go, but I've always done it this way. And so I can't stop now. And so I think micromanagement is actually a maladaptive coping mechanism for people who said, I can't fail. And so even when people are walking out the door going, you're a micromanager, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna hire some more people and micromanage them too.
Isn't that true? And I'm gonna, you and I have been very transparent and authentic, and I'm happy to stay here. I thought what you just said is really good, but I'm going to take a variation of that. I think some leaders are going, I'm micromanaging and controlling because I am a failure. I've been a failure, and I don't want, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's also because I'm going back to this pain thing to where they're going, I've got this narrative that I'm not good enough or whatever, and I can't let that keep happening, and they're trying to stop that from happening. Like, it's happened enough. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to reword what you said. I'm trying to go a little deeper to go, we're so worried that what we feel about ourselves or what we think other people think about us is actually true, and we try to control it.
Yes.
I think that's it.
I just figured out, it's the noun versus the verb. They think, I'm not good.
There it is.
And so what I do determines who I am. And so you're right, they think like, I am a failure, I'm not good. I'm better perform.